All right, let's get right into it. We're in the middle of a tech revolution that's changing our world faster than we can keep up. And today, we're going to unpack the huge power struggle happening right at the heart of artificial intelligence.
And when I say fast, I mean unbelievably fast. Just think about this for a second. ChatGPT shot up to almost 800 million users, making it the fastest adopted app in history. This isn't just some slow and steady evolution. It's a total lightning speed transformation of how we do, well, everything.
And with all that speed, you get this fascinating and honestly kind of frightening split. On one side, you have this insane creation of wealth, but on the other, you're looking at some undeniable risks that could mess with everything from our jobs to the very idea of a fair election.
Which brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. With so much on the line, who's actually driving this thing? Who really holds the power in this brand new AI-powered world? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out.
So let's follow the money, because the numbers here are just staggering. Nope, that is not a typo. OpenAI, the company that gave us ChatGPT, is looking at a potential value of up to $1 trillion. That's the kind of power that doesn't just build an industry, it defines it for a generation.
But right as you're trying to wrap your head around a number with that many zeros, here's the reality check. This quote from Senator Chris Murphy just nails that deep anxiety that's growing right alongside all the hype. This isn't just about cool tech anymore, it's about what's real.
Okay, so to understand what's happening, you have to look at the biggest players. Let's break down the massive alliance that's pouring billions into winning this race, the whole OpenAI and Microsoft partnership.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how all these pieces just lock together. So OpenAI rejiggers itself into a public benefit corporation, which basically means it's a for-profit company that legally has to balance making money with its mission to help humanity. In exchange, Microsoft gets a huge piece of the pie and, get this, locks OpenAI into spending $250 billion on its Azure cloud. And to run it all, the Stargate project, a data center that will use 1 gigawatt of power. That's enough electricity for a small city, all just for AI.
And this chart, this shows you exactly why this is all happening. Just look at that revenue growth. We're talking less than $1 billion in 2022 to a projected $12 billion by 2025. That is not a gentle curve, my friends. That is a rocket ship. And that's the financial engine behind that whole trillion-dollar dream.
But here's the thing, even inside this massive alliance, there's a real debate about what's actually coming next. One of OpenAI's own co-founders, Andres Karpathy, thinks truly capable AI is still like a decade of grunt work away. But then you have Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who talks about jagged intelligence, these powerful but still kind of flawed systems that are already changing how we work right now. It's that classic battle between the long-term vision and the short-term profits.
So let's pivot from that sky-high ambition back down to earth. That idea of jagged intelligence is the perfect way to think about it, because while the potential is enormous, the tech is also full of really serious, really stubborn flaws.
The word you need to know is hallucination. And it's so important to get this. This isn't a bug like a normal software. The AI isn't looking up a fact in a book and reading it wrong. It's a prediction engine. It's just guessing the next most likely word. And when it doesn't actually know the answer, it just woof, makes one up with complete and total confidence. And the consequences are getting pretty severe. In politics, Google had to pull one of its models for making stuff up about a senator. In journalism, a chatbot falsely accused a reporter of being a child killer. In the legal world, lawyers are actually getting sanctioned by courts for using fake cases that an AI just invented. And maybe most chilling, in mental health, a chatbot gave really concerning advice to someone who was indicating suicidal thoughts. These aren't just hypotheticals anymore. This is happening now.
And Senator Marsha Blackburn really hits the nail on the head here. The problem isn't just that the AI gets it wrong, it's the confidence. It presents pure fiction as if it were fact, and that's starting to look a lot less like a simple error and a lot more like defamation.
So naturally, this whole situation is now exploding onto the global stage. With the stakes this high, countries are now racing not just to build the best AI, but to write the rulebook that everyone else will have to follow.
And right now, we're seeing two totally different visions for the future emerge. You've got China pushing for a World AI Cooperation Organization, or WICO. The idea is to help developing nations and create an alternative to a Western-dominated system. Then you have the West, with what's called the Hiroshima Process. That's led by the G7, the group of the world's biggest advanced economies. and it's focused on creating a shared code of conduct. This is a geopolitical fight over who gets to decide the future of your data privacy and what AI should even be allowed to do.
And everybody's moving at a different pace. The EU is already out in front with its super strict risk-based AI Act. Taiwan is trying to thread the needle with a more balanced approach so it doesn't kill its tech industry. And the US? Well, it's still debating what to do. Basically racing against the clock to get something on the books before AI-driven misinformation really messes with the next big elections.
But you know, underneath all the code and the money and the politics, there's an even more basic struggle going on. It's a race for the actual physical stuff that makes this whole revolution even possible.
So, first resource, content. How do you legally train these things? Well, some companies are making licensing deals. It's legally safe, but it might be too slow and expensive. The other option? Just scrape the entire internet and claim fair use. It's fast and it scales, but it comes with a ton of lawsuits from pretty much every major publisher. This is a huge fight over the future of information itself.
We've all been told the same thing over and over, right? The new AI economy runs on two things: really smart code and unbelievable amounts of data. And yeah, that's true, up to a point.
But what happens when you have all the code you could ever want and all the data on the internet? What's the real, ultimate roadblock that stops everything in its tracks?
Well, the answer is surprisingly physical. It's not the algorithms, it's the electrons. It's the raw electricity needed to power these massive data centers. We're already hearing reports that Microsoft is hitting the limits of the power grid. Turns out, this digital revolution is completely dependent on our very real, very fragile energy infrastructure.
And that brings us to the final absolute choke point, the computer chips. And this isn't some abstract economic theory. This is real-world geopolitics. The Dutch government literally just seized a chip maker named Nexperia from its Chinese owners over national security concerns. The fight for AI isn't just happening in labs, it's happening in factories and on shipping docks.
So, that's where we are right now. It's basically a three-way collision. You've got the trillion-dollar ambition of big tech smashing into the dangerous, unavoidable flaws of the technology itself, and the whole thing is propped up by a global dogfight for the physical resources and the political rules that are going to shape all of our futures.
Which leaves us with one last, massive question. All these new titans of AI, they promise they're building a future that's going to benefit all of humanity. But in this chaotic, high-stakes struggle for money and control, who's going to be there to make sure they actually keep that promise?